Jason and Marto said I'd look good on stage.
Next question.
Never said that.
Martin said he looked shit. I
Yeah.
peer pressured him.
That's true. So the prep started mainly because, so I've always planned on getting back on stage at some point. Last time I competed was 2013. I guess since then, been training and just trying to, enjoy that process. Did powerlifting for a decent number of years, and then for the last pretty much year and a half to 2 years, I've been mostly dedicated to more hypertrophy and body comp training. Spent all of last year through 2020 to early 2021 massing, just trying to put on as much size in a controlled manner as possible with Jackson. Did a mini cut just as part of the process and was going to go into another massing phase after that. So I lost about 9-10 kilos, sitting around 77, 78 kilos when I finished. Maintained for about a month. And then it was more a matter of kind of just like timing. We were just discussing on the gym floor one day, and it was like, 16 weeks out from, the season. And I was in relatively good condition. Kind of said, maybe I could compete this season. Spoke to everyone that I needed to speak to kind of see if it aligned. No real plans that are going to disrupt, I guess, a more dedicated training and dieting phase over the coming few months. So like no holidays and no really big events that are going to disrupt that. Kayla was on board. Jacob, all the team here were on board. So I guess, it's kind of a perfect storm, and everything aligned, and it was a good opportunity to kind of pull the trigger, and I was already in a good spot to start the prep. So now we're, 2 weeks in and underway. These lovely gentlemen have been training with me by my side for the last year and a half, very much just enjoying the process of, training, pushing each other, having a laugh, and I guess making fun of each other throughout that process, all in the spirit of trying to get better, improve ourselves and what we do. Martin is going to be overseeing my nutrition and diet throughout, the next 15, 16 weeks. Jason's going to be overseeing programming. They're both going to be working closely together and with me throughout the process. I think it'll be a great opportunity for Jason to really hone his skills coaching. He knows what I like. He knows my body and how I respond to training. We have good open communication, so it'll make it a lot easier. Martin's jumped along for the ride. He's now on the same training program as me as well, so we'll just make any individual adjustments that we need to. And then Martin will just pretty much make sure that I'm sticking to my nutrition and not being a complete jalopy throughout the process. And then we'll all train together and get jacked.
Hopefully.
That's the game. That's the goal.
Sam does have a great foundation for bodybuilding, and his last 12 months have been very conducive to a contest prep. So, 12 months ago, he didn't know he was going to be competing this year, but everything that he does in the gym and his general life is always directed towards one day competing again. And it so happened that this year and over the next few months, his lifestyle and everything that he just does generally in his general life has lined up for this comp. So we thought that it was a great time to pull the trigger and compete. And because he did spend most of last year in and off season building muscle, like I said, all that is conducive to bodybuilding. He has done an 8-week mini cut already earlier this year, so he stripped away some of the body fat that we need to lose. He's just come off a maintenance period as well, so he really is in a good position to start a full-blown contest prep and get to stage lean conditioning. So I'm really excited to see what Sam can bring over the next 15 to 17 weeks. We do have a few comps planned, so everything that we're doing now is aimed at losing body fat whilst maintaining muscle, preserving his training performance as much as we can, and just capitalizing on all the hard training that he has done over the past months and over the past year. Like, all of that has been just adding pennies in the bank for this comp prep, and now that it's here, we can really capitalize on all that, expose all the muscle that he's built, because last year how much did you gain? How much weight did you gain over there?
14 kilos, I think, right?
I dieted down to 72. That's when I started. So 15.
Yeah. So he's gained 15 kilos, obviously in a slow and controlled manner. Now, not all of that is muscle mass, but based on his physique, based on his performance in the gym, and many other indicators of muscle growth, we've done circumference measures, etc. We do think he's put on a considerable amount of muscle tissue, especially considering he's now sitting at 75-ish kilos and looking, quite developed compared to maybe the last time he was at 75 kilos. So regarding stage weight, we're not exactly sure as of this point, but we do think he'll have to dip below 70 kilos, which obviously does require quite a bit of hard work and dedication over the next 15, 17 weeks. But yeah, considering Sam's background, his history, training and dieting for powerlifting, and being quite, I guess, dedicated and strict in his approach. And when I say strict, I just say in the sense of being an athlete in the way he really sees his fitness. So he is very dedicated. He does what he needs to do. He ticks boxes. And I think the next 15 to 17 weeks will be quite productive. Yeah, so what we'll be doing over the next 15 to 17 weeks is tracking scale weight on essentially a daily basis. But of course, as we get close to the comp and Sam gets leaner, we can't just rely on scale weight, because at the end of the day, bodybuilding is not judged on scale weight at all, and he doesn't have any weight categories which he needs to make and to be at a certain weight for. So weekly check-in photos, weekly posing, all of that is going to be really important as we get close to the comp. We're going to be paying a lot of attention to his physique. We'll be taking measurements as well to ensure we pick up on progress when maybe the scale weight isn't showing us or isn't providing us with a true representation of his progress. So we will be relying on other measures of conditioning, essentially. But at the end of the day, we're going to be looking to push Sam's physique as far as possible. And to do so, we need to be progressing weekly, whether it's dropping scale weight or Sam looking leaner. We need to be seeing weekly progression.
How dare you ask?
Everything now. There's not anything that I'm really worried about. There's things that I know to keep an eye on. Sam is quite a strong guy, so he does end up needing to put a fair bit of weight on the bar, and that does tend to result in like niggles and like a bit of tendon soreness and joint soreness. Luckily, we've had a few blocks of me writing his program, and I've kind of got a feel for what might start to aggravate those niggles or those little pains, and we've kind of worked around that, and we'll always keep an eye on that and always keep that in the back of my mind and Martin as well when we're updating programs and making changes. But honestly, I think this block is going to be really good because we've kind of we're in a spot where he's not dealing with too much of that now compared to over the last few blocks. Just through changing some exercises, changing rep ranges, little changes to exercises like adding bands to some exercises. Mainly the goal is to almost reduce some of the loads that he's using to give his tendons and joints the opportunity to recover between sessions, because I think that's a real big thing for Sam. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I think that's the main thing. Like I said, it's more that I've started to learn what's worked for him and what doesn't work for him. There are some exercises we've kind of gotten rid of, we got rid of hack squats for this block. They're giving his hips some trouble. We've replaced them with single leg press, some little things like that. The training itself is very similar. We're training hard, similar rep ranges. It just comes down to the basics, but also tailoring that to Sam and his current circumstances and his recovery and that sort of thing. I would say
it would have been the same training block, irrespective.
Yeah,
it was already planned before I started the prep.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
So what generally builds muscle also maintains it. So you don't really want to be making drastic changes to a training program once you enter a cut. There's no need to overhaul the program. Traditionally, people take the low load, high rep approach when cutting, and there's definitely some utility to that potentially later as Sam gets leaner. But for now, considering he's just started the cut, he's feeling pretty good. He hasn't really displayed any symptoms, if you will, of being in a calorie deficit. He's just come off 5 weeks or so at maintenance, so he's still in a state to train hard. His training readiness is still quite high, and so we don't need to make many drastic changes. Like Jason outlined though, what we're trying to do is make training feel slightly easier for Sam whilst maintaining the effectiveness of that training. So changes in exercise selection, potentially trying to alter the loads that he's using while still keeping the effectiveness of the training really high. All that can come in really handy, especially as he does start to get leaner. And of course, when we do start seeing some cracks in Sam's ability to train and to maintain performance and just his training readiness in general, you'll find that throughout a prep, there will be a day where you walk into the gym and you just won't really feel like training, and that will come sooner or later. And once we start seeing those cracks, then we will make the according changes to the training program. But for now, I think if we're going to really try and maximize muscle retention, we just need to keep doing exactly what he has been doing
for as long as possible.
Yeah, and like Sam said, the training program probably would have been the same even if he had continued his bulking phase. So no need to make many changes now, but when things get a little tricky and Sam gets leaner, well, that's a different story. Yeah, so as we know, bodybuilding is it's a sport. Some people don't call it a sport, but I think it's a sport, and it's a 24/7 sport. So it follows you around. Some sports just require you to rock up, do the work, do the training, compete on the weekend, whereas bodybuilding requires a lot of delay and gratification because it's such a long-term endeavor. Like we're talking here 15 weeks ahead. We're planning 15 weeks ahead of time, and it requires you to train in the gym, but then it also requires you to go home and stay on track with your nutrition, to adhere, to tick all the boxes. And the good thing is that Sam is quite a structured individual. He naturally gravitates towards a more structured lifestyle in his work and in his life outside of work as well. So he's always doing his meal prep. So it's not like he's gone from not doing meal prep to meal prepping for this comp, which is quite a common thing for people to do. He essentially hasn't really changed much at all besides now tailoring his nutrition towards a lowered calorie intake. So all the habits and behaviors that Sam has ingrained over the years from competing in sports and from just living this lifestyle and enjoying this journey, that hasn't changed. He's been able to continue doing all that, and all we've really done, like we said, we've kept training the same. All we've done is just decrease his calorie intake based on the rate of loss that we're after here, and he's been able to easily transition into that. The only drawbacks potentially of that I foresee, Sam's
no birthday cake.
No, that's the thing. It's Sam's birthday this week, so we have to talk about that. It's Sam's birthday, and he's got a few things.
Birthday.
He's got a few things planned. So this is the thing. There's always a fine line, in a prep with going out and eating food outside of the food that is cooked in your kitchen. But it's the first week of this prep, so we're going to try and work around all these little obstacles. But really, after this week and after Sam's birthday celebrations, it's go time.
They go for a month though.
Sorry?
They go for
last year Sam's birthday celebrations went for about a month.
They go until December 5th.
Not this year.
When Marto's birthday.
Yeah, not this year. So we're going to give Sam some leeway this first week, but things are going to get
a week
2 weeks.
Don't tell Mum.
Yeah. So really, I don't foresee many obstacles coming up because of Sam's natural just tendencies to be quite structured. And once this week's out of the way, we still think there's more than enough time to get Sam stage ready.
I think that's what Martin meant when he was saying that, or part of what he meant was when he said that Sam's in a good spot. He's already got like the eating behaviors down pat. He's already training regularly, training really hard. Like everything's already there, like in terms of the habits. Now it just is simply like modifying things like calories, maybe tightening up like tracking and that sort of thing.
It's not a lifestyle overhaul.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
so it's real.
It's a minor adjustment, whereas I think a lot of people go into a prep and they're like
a big change.
Now I'm prepping and this is a different thing. It's like, well, now I'm prepping and it's the exact same, just on less calories.
Yeah, and I think that'll like help with a lot of that diet fatigue and some of the things that come with prepping for sure.
Well, I think I'm due for a mini break.
A diet break? Yeah.
Diet break, sorry.
We're going to diet break every week.
We'll think about that one.
Every week's a diet break.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of my good friends, Timmy, he likes to go out for food. I had to tell him I can't have croissants. Nah, so
No.
I think, yeah, because like a lot of people always bring food in. I think over the years there's probably been a role in people's lives nearly, where people are like, I'll make food, and if I have leftovers or something, I can give them to Sam. So I think very much setting that expectation early on, with people like more external of my like super close friends, is probably really good. Like, I think bodybuilding's become a lot more normalized. Dieting for fat loss has become a lot more normalized these days. You know, even people who aren't, say, within the circle understand it a lot more. I remember, like, you know, back when Jake and I started all this, you know, we wouldn't want to eat at McDonald's and stuff, or if we ate at McDonald's, we'd just get like a grilled chicken burger or something like super plain, you know, and people just didn't get it. And I think, you know, the popularization of probably like just training and improving body composition and stuff has really changed that. So I think it will be significantly easier to do a prep now than it was maybe years ago, where like we do have more low calorie foods, we do have a lot more options, there are a lot more, you know, places around that can cater for that kind of lifestyle, and just making sure other people understand that it's like, this is my decision. It's like, it shouldn't affect them at all. Like, just try not to bring me food. If you bring food to me, that's fine, I probably just won't eat it, and then
eat it,
I'll donate it to someone. And then just trying to like make things work. Like, I don't want to give up all the socializing stuff. I don't want people to feel like they can't eat in front of me and stuff. At a point that will get hard, and I don't doubt that. But fortunately, like, all the people around me understand, you know, dieting and what's involved. So I think that'll make it really less sucky. You know, Kayla's fucking a wizard. She's already like planning out like low calorie food options, and I'm like, we don't need to change anything like that just yet, but good to have in the bank. Good to know that she's thinking more long term about that, or that kind of stuff already. So I think, yeah, lifestyle shouldn't change too much, probably just like slightly more geared to, you know, like less flexibility just with eating, you know, and probably like going out and being able to just eat a meal and still like eat intuitively. Now it's just go out, maybe don't eat, you know. It's like, you know, depending on like where things are in the prep, and just like trying to plan as best I can. Or, you know, if we have a dinner, going somewhere where you know with a large degree of confidence what you can eat. Like tonight, going for just to a steakhouse, and it's like, I know I've been there before, I've been there countless times, I know I can just get a steak and vegetables. And it's like with a much larger degree of confidence than going some random restaurant that you've never been to, and just kind of guessing it. I think not giving up too much control and still having a degree of flexibility, at least in the early stages, will make it a lot more sustainable in the longer term.
I think too many people go into a prep, and bodybuilding sometimes chews people up and spits them out, and that's because they take a very, very rigid approach. So,
black and white.
For example, if I have a client who's been prepping for 25 weeks, and you know, this is usually a approach that I recommend, is taking a longer approach. And Sam's already been cutting for 8 weeks, for example. You add that up to the 15, 16 weeks he's doing now. That's well over 20 weeks. He's essentially ahead of the game, and you want to try and be ahead of the game when you're prepping, so that if you do have a birthday coming up, if you do have a very special occasion, you can get away with going out, having a nice dinner, and taking the approach that Sam just outlined, where, you know, you go to a restaurant that you are familiar with, you look at the menu beforehand, you know exactly what it is you're going to order, and if, you know, you order a steak, veggies, and potato on the side, then you can track it. It is accurate to some extent, and it's not going to ruin your relationships. It's not going to, you know, run you into the ground mentally, because this is what happens. People restrict themselves so much, and when you do that, then no wonder the rebounds after a comp are so harsh. It's because the level of restriction is so high that when the goal isn't there, when bodybuilding isn't there anymore, there's such a big compensation, and that's when we see that rebound. So, you know, we're not saying that you can go ahead and eat out, you know, all the time when you're prepping, but if you are ahead of the game, if you plan out your prep strategically, and you have a long period of time to get yourself to the stage, if there is an important occasion, then I think, you know, you can go ahead and account for it, because if that's going to uphold your mental state, if that's going to keep you sane, if that's going to keep your relationships with the people around you robust, then it's probably going to have more positives in the long run than it will negatives. And there's so many ways that you can account for that with nutrition if you really, really need to. There's always ways you can compensate for that food if you need to. But if you plan ahead and you make the right options when you're there, then in many cases, you're still able to make progress. So yeah,
I think
that's the approach we're taking this week.
Like I was saying to Marto the other day, I think, you know, a 25-week prep is entirely normal. Like that was the duration that Jake and I prepped for in 2013. And dieting is stressful. Like anyone who's ever dieted knows that it's stressful. And a lot of the time people have all the stress of dieting with none of the success of dieting because they fuck it up. And I think the reason that I feel like I'm in a good position to start a prep is because I'm already halfway through a prep and I have literally no stress of being through a prep because in my mind I wasn't in a prep. I just dieted because that was part of the process. Now I'm
You didn't have
10,
the intention.
10, 11 weeks through and down 12 kilos.
Without the diet fatigue
12
and all
kilos,
that sort of stuff.
and no psychological stress of dieting or anything, and there's still a degree of flexibility. Whereas I think, mindset and kind of that longer term approach and just understanding that you don't need to overhaul everything, and it's just a gradual process that if you kind of chip away, that's how you're successful.
I think at some point, obviously, it does need to tighten up, but
Yeah, and it will.
Yeah, I think it's good that he's had the opportunity to, you know, spend half of his prep that he didn't know he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even track
Quite
calories.
flexible, yeah.
I didn't track a single calorie.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of why he's in a good spot as well going into this. He's not hungry for the most part.
Not yet.
You know, not stressed.
Hungry to win.
Pro card.
Next question, Timmy. Like, I'm a particular person, so I feel like that tendency will probably get exacerbated a little bit as I get, you know, tired, fatigued, maybe snappy with people. But, you know, I haven't been really lean to the point where it's like been hard to cope for probably like 4 years. So I think I'm a bit more mature than I was then. Like anyone pushing to those levels of leanness, it's like can be really hard. I think ultimately it depends on like kind of why you're doing it. And if you have a good degree of social support and the people around you understand that, you know, if you snap, if you get shitty, like it's excusable to a point. Like, you know, we're all coaches and we work with, you know, Martin through his prep, you know, a couple of years ago. It's like where you leave weights on a bar, it's like you'll forgive it because you understand what they're going through. So I think like those things will get hard, you know, but I'm confident that the people around me will be able to cope with that.
And I think knowing that some of these things are bound to happen does help as well. You can kind of be like, okay, this is just part of the prep. I'm feeling this way because I'm dieting so hard.
Just being able to rationalize it and kind of come to terms with why certain things happen. I think other parts, like just generally going through change, like physical changes, large physical changes can be like quite psychologically taxing. You know, it's like when clothes don't fit and it's like, you know, become more food centric, stuff like that. So I think just trying to control for that and not avoid it, but just be aware of it. You know, you don't need to avoid thinking about food. You don't need to avoid being around food. But I think just like having a plan and trying to structure your life to cope with, you know, the inherent struggles of being lean for an extended period of time will probably, you know, do really well. I look at people like Tabby and Luke who, you know, have done preps in the last couple of years. Two people I would think, you know, on the net balance would be like supremely successful in their dieting in terms of getting really lean, being really successful on stage, but also a really controlled exit strategy and implementation of that strategy. So I think, yeah, it's really hard to say. I think my personality, I get shitty at people anyway when I feel like they have disappointed me or let me down. Even if they don't necessarily know it, I might be sarcastic or snappy. So trying to keep that in check is what I need to do. But I should do it anyway, so I guess that doesn't even help.
Yeah.
Marto's like, yeah.
I think being aware of these things is really important. Too often people enter a prep and they haven't been spoken to about these things. They haven't been taught about all the effects that come along with a prep. So, you know, one of the effects is obviously getting lean, and we like that. That's what we're going for. And the other effects that we experience, you know, we don't like them, so we call them side effects. And some of those effects are just, you know, becoming maybe more aggravated at certain things. And sometimes your tendencies, your tendencies. So Sam said, you know, he's got a tendency to be, what did you say? Very
snappy,
particular. Those tend to become more pronounced as you get leaner.
You have less control over your emotions because you're irrational, because you're hungry.
Yeah, so you need to understand that these side effects will come about sooner or later. You need to know that they are a byproduct of getting lean, and you can't actually escape them. So a lot of people try to get around them, try and manipulate their diet in a way to get around some of these things that start to arise as we get leaner. But at the end of the day, we can't escape the side effects of getting lean, especially very lean, stage lean.
I do have one actual other thought. Like, obviously, just working on the gym, being here all the time, I think, like, handling other people's problems will get challenging, more challenging. You know, if I have 50 clients, which is probably around the number now, like, dealing with 50 other people, trying to get them to comply, diet, train, all these things, I feel like that might be challenging. Some of my clients have been around since my last dieting prep, and they're psychologically ready for it. Again, I think that's a situation where having, you know, good coaches around will also, you know, help that, and just make sure that if I needed to reduce my coaching load for a period of time, that there'd be people who could step up and do that.
So it's not only the competitor that needs to know about what will occur as a prep goes on, but it's also the people around you. It's also,
and most people don't work in a gym. Most people don't have colleagues who understand.
That's right. So it's even harder for them.
You work somewhere. You work in an office, and they're like, "Why the fuck is
they bring you
Stuart
donuts,
from accounting such an asshole? Oh, he's comp prepping. What the fuck's that?"
Yeah. So Sam's in a good environment, and that's why it's so important to have your environment in line with your goals, or at least try and put yourself in an environment that is in line with your goals, and manipulate it in a way that, you know, is conducive to that, whether that be at home or at work, wherever it is. You know, Sam mentioned how, you know, his partner Kayla is quite supportive. She's also a very, you know, dedicated dieter, so that helps. You know, being in the gym environment helps as well, because people in here tend to know what bodybuilding is all about. And I think if, you know, you're a first-time competitor out there, or if you're thinking of competing, you really do need to take all of these little things into account, because your chances of success will increase if you are ticking these boxes before you even start the prep.
Yeah, it'll suck less if you have hard conversations with people and communicate.
That's right. Yeah, it's always going to
what's going on, so you can have a two-way conversation about expectations and potential realities, rather than just like putting your blinders on and going for it, irrespective of you know, the impact that it'll have on the people around you. Because bodybuilding does, even though it's a very selfish sport, it does impact a lot of other people, which is maybe why it's so selfish. You know, so it's important to communicate it.
The prep's already going to be challenging enough, so just already dealing with those things and like communicating those things beforehand might mean we run into less troubles.
Being hungry is hard enough. Having other people tell you to just eat something because they don't understand it makes it even harder.
Yeah, and when you've got a short fuse and things like that,
it's just like a recipe for disaster. All that shit. Smack that shit.
Debatable.
Posing.
Sam hasn't done much posing
aspect of bodybuilding
for a while, because he wasn't planning on doing this prep.
No.
So he hasn't actually had much posing practice compared to maybe like John. He's been posing for the last...
That wasn't his first session?
Weeks. I don't know, I can't tell. So he's probably got to do a bit more work with his posing compared to some other people, because he hasn't had that extra time to prepare and practice. Definitely can use some work based on today's posing. But
wasn't that bad?
It's alright. It's not bad.
Okay? It was okay. Come on, positive reinforcement.
We'll lie to him.
Lie to me and make the prep easy.
No, there's definitely like room for improvement. He's in a good spot. He's done bodybuilding before, but just not having that practice, posing can be quite hard. Like holding those poses. You know, it's a lot. It's quite challenging.
Different kind of fitness, really. Isometrics over time.
Yeah, I think for Sam it's more the posing endurance that we need to really build.
Yeah.
Like if you've done bodybuilding before, the poses tend to come naturally to you, even if you don't practice them all the time. But I'm sure Sam does before he takes a shower every night. Because I know I do. We all do.
I literally
confessions of a gym bro.
I do not do that.
No.
Normally,
So,
I'm just crying in front of the mirror before the shower.
So what we'll be doing is preferably Sam will be practicing his posing about 3 times a week. When I say practicing his posing 3 times a week, dedicated sessions. So 10 to 20 minutes of dedicated posing. That's generally more than enough at this point in the prep. And as we get leaner and leaner, poses do tend to change slightly, and we do tweak things. So for now, it's just a matter of Sam getting used to his positions again, getting used to holding those poses and getting into the right positions. As we get closer and closer to the prep, we will start working more and more on the endurance side of things, so actually holding the poses for a solid 20 to 30 seconds. And then as we get closer and closer to the show, that's when we make minor tweaks based on how he's actually looking, because we expect him to be looking different essentially week by week from here on in. So we will be making quite a rapid amount of progress weekly from here, and that means that posing will have to change according to his physique to some extent.
Yeah.
Not at this stage. I think it'll be fun. I think recording will be, documenting the process will be certainly interesting.
It'll be cool to look back on as well, for sure, for you.
Yeah.
Next time you compete, if you compete again.
Yeah. I think it'll be 15 weeks is a long time, but it's also not. Like, we're already in June. We're halfway through the year.
It's just 3 training days.
Yeah.
It's not much.
Not long at all. It'll fly around pretty quickly, I think. So, time to get to work.
Yeah. It's good that you've also got like John prepping with you. You guys will keep each other accountable as well.
Give them something to chase, huh?
They're going to compete against each other as well.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So they'll be posing together, prepping together. So I think
in the teenage division.
Yeah, that's it. Under 16.
Under 12s.
Yeah, I think like for me, I'm sure that would motivate me, and I think
the last time I prepped was with Jacob. That was good. It's fun to. It's much more fun. Martin will agree to do it with people you know. I think, how many, bodybuilding's an interesting sport. Like it's sucky. So having someone who's going through the same suckiness with you definitely helps, because, you can train together, G each other up, and it's like, other people can do that, but I think, just knowing that someone else is kind of there by your side will probably make a big difference. Plus John's fucking young and naive, man. He's gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think seeing like who you're competing against, like in person, in front of you, is like, real cool.
Any thoughts, Timmy?
Looking forward to documenting it all.
Yeah. Cool.
He's got the wide lens camera ready.
That's it. Fish lens.
Fish lens, eh?
That's it.
Cool.
He's gonna put a filter on my face though.
Duck lips.
Alright, that's it. Until
So
next
bye.
time.
Oh, Dragon
Ball Z.
Let's go!